This is You and the Law on AM 650. Now back to the show.
Good to have you with us for this edition of You and the Law. I'm Sterling Fox. In studio with me, two lawyers from Murphy Bautista. They are Scott Stanley and Kevin Gorley, who act on behalf of people who are, in Dutch or in opposing insurance companies. And for every one of you, Scott, and both our guests, by the way, have, as is, I think, typical with people in your line of work, you've worked for the industry, and then you've crossed over to working for the plaintiffs. So it really is helpful to people who go to a firm like Murphy Bautista. All of you guys know the playbook and the strategy that the insurance industry is likely to pursue when you advance your clients' claims, right? Sorry, what was that? There we are.
Yeah, we hope we know the playbook.
Okay. Well, okay, I think that's, you two are experienced lawyers who've spent some time and earned a buck or two working for the industry, and I don't imagine tactics change that much year after year because insurance law doesn't change that much, does it?
It doesn't. The most common tactic you'll see from an insurance company is attrition. They'll try to wage a war of attrition on you and your clients.
Delay.
They have more resources than the average person does, and so they'll bring those resources to bear on a claim to defeat them.
Well, let's talk about that. Let me interrupt you there because I think it's important here. When you are have a claim that's denied, or you are in a position with your insurance company where you feel wronged and angry enough to seek out some legal assistance here, you know that these people are jerking me around, and I got to go see a lawyer. So I go to see Kevin or Scott at Murphy Bautista, and okay, Kevin, you're my lawyer. Now, as it turns out, the guys that are going to be opposing you on this, well, for every one of you, there are about 20 of them on salary, no problem. They've got all the time in the world. That's all they do. And you've been there. You know this. So how do you come at that monolith as one guy?
Well, ideally, you have the facts on your side. You have a client and a claim that is valid, and they've been wrongly denied, and usually that will triumph. One of the difficulties, as well as them having more lawyers on their side, they just have more resources and more ability to withstand the risk. So they can push an individual up to trial because they can accept the fact that if they're unsuccessful, the insurance company has the means to be unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. Whereas an individual, you have to be confident you're going to succeed because failure can be devastating for an individual.
All right. Now, I interrupted you, Scott, and you were talking about strategy number one, wherever possible, delay. And that implies that they have, again, more resources than the individual who's going up against this insurance company. And so they can drain the individual's resources, and theirs won't even be tapped at all.
Well, that's true. I mean, for every one of us that represents regular folks, there's probably 10 or 15 that represent insurance companies. So there's way more lawyers that represent insurance companies, and there's actually very few that do what we do and represent people that have claims against insurance companies. Right. It's very complicated stuff, and a lot of lawyers struggle to read their own insurance policies, so you have to have some experience working with these things. Mm-hmm. So there's fewer lawyers for people to hire. When an insurance company hires a lawyer and they pay them by the hour, they usually pay them at much cheaper rates than regular lawyers. And we don't do hourly rate work. We only do contingency fees.
Okay, good.
So the client is guaranteed to have us for the whole show. But the insurance company, they pay lower rates because they're able to pay their lawyers lower rates because they're clamoring to do work for them. And not only do they pay lower rates, Sterling, but they actually get to write that off. But the regular Joe doesn't. They have to pay with after-tax dollars. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there's a disadvantage there. And really what our clients have on their side is they have truth and reality. And we have to build our cases based on around the truth and reality and just have the fortitude and the resilience to take these things all the way to trial. You don't have to, because if you're prepared to do that, they'll see that and they will and do back down. But unless the lawyer has been engaged so that they're going to take the case from start to finish, they're not just going to take it until the client runs out of money.
Right.
Those claims, the only way I think a client can be successful is if they're going to have their lawyer hired from start to finish.
Right.
to pursue that truth and reality.
I'm glad you mentioned contingency, because I was going to get to that with both of you. I mean, it's a fundamental and fair question for anyone to ask of a lawyer. So how do you get paid? And contingency, you take a percentage of whatever the damage award is. Correct, Kevin?
Yeah, it's basically whatever you recover, the lawyer charges a percentage of that. So it generally means if you're unsuccessful in the claim, you don't have to pay any legal fees. And if you are successful, it just comes out of the recovery.
Okay, but as far as the draining of an individual's resources, Scott, if you have a contingency arrangement for X percentage of whatever that final award would be, if they try and drag this case on and on and on and consume enormous amounts of your time, do you take a larger percentage because you've had to work harder on this file?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. The only way to fight insurance companies is to make sure the client has some certainty that they're going to have representation from start to finish.
Right.
And that there's going to be a set fee regardless of the result. And the other thing I found is that because this is a real complicated, esoteric area of law, that sometimes people will hire lawyers and they don't, I mean, they're smart and they can figure these claims out, but they got to spend money on the client's hourly rate to get themselves figured out. Mm-hmm. It's like bringing your Ferrari into a Ford dealer. They're going to need to spend some time to figure this animal out. And
with the clock running, of course.
On your nickel. And a lot of these claims run out of money right out of the get-go. So.
And how does the fee arrangement get made? Is it set by the Law Society, or is it something that each company determines, Kevin, as policy, or does it go case by case?
The Law Society has maximums that lawyers can charge.
Okay.
So on a motor vehicle accident claim, the most a lawyer can charge is 33 1/3%. On non-motor vehicle accident claims, so for example, medical malpractice or coverage claims like we've been talking about, mm-hmm. the maximum they can charge is 40%. However, much of the time a lower rate is charged, and basically what lawyers do is they look at the case, they look at the amount involved, they look at how complicated it is, how much work is going to be required, and that's a fee is agreed upon generally at the very start of the claim.
I remember, Scott, when we sat down to do our first show a few weeks ago, you said the most common desire of people who come to Murphy Bautista is to get their lives back. They've been in a situation where they've been maybe in an accident, or they've been ill, or they've been injured, or whatever, and life has just never been quite the same since that fateful day. And all they want is to get their lives back as best as they can before all of this happened. So I would imagine once a reasonable fee is announced, that's fine.
It is. The exact same thing applies to people that have insurance claims. They just want their life back.
Yeah.
If their home has been destroyed by flood or fire, they want that back. That is their life. That is a big part of people's lives. The other thing that people have to bear in mind is just because they've signed a fee agreement, even if it is a contingency fee, and I think 40% and 33% should only be charged in very, very extreme situations.
Okay.
I mean, our fees typically are much lower than that.
All right.
But regardless of what a client has agreed to sign, they still have the right to go and have a judge review the lawyer's fee, and a lot of clients don't know that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. It's interesting. So you have recourse beyond whatever you signed the dotted line.
Yeah, we always tell our clients, and we actually set it out in our fee agreements, and I think most lawyers do as well. But we also tell them that, look, if this fee turns out to be unreasonable, if I just make one phone call and I get your claim settled because they're afraid that Murphy Bautista's on the line.
Right, sure. Okay.
We're not going to charge you the full fee. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be reasonable. And, I mean, I've never had a client review my fees or challenge them because we try to make them reasonable. We want to have happy clients. We want to have people that'll tell others about us. But clients have that recourse. They don't have to settle with what they've actually signed for if it turns out after the fact that it's not reasonable. So they can have a judge review it.
If a person, Kevin, is listening right now and is kind of going through a circumstance where something has happened in a very negative way, they're having a bit of a battle with their insurance company, and they see themselves as being beset upon and in the right, and the insurance company is really trying to jerk them around. But this lawyer thing, man, lawyers just cost an arm and a leg. I'd go sit down with a lawyer and find out where I stand, but geez, I don't think I can afford even to sit down for a half an hour. Do you charge for that kind of initial, do I have any legal rights? Do I have a legal leg to stand on kind of conversation with a confused, angry person?
No, the initial consultation is always free, and if you are having an issue with an insurance company, it's always a good idea to make an appointment with a lawyer, maybe more than one lawyer, and go and talk to them and tell them what the issue is. And oftentimes we'll be able to give them advice fairly quickly with some basic knowledge of the facts about their likelihood of success. It may be that we have bad news for them. It might be that we say, no, unfortunately,
you don't have
you're
a leg
unlikely to
stand.
succeed.
Right.
But usually,
But at least you've had a lawyer tell you that.
Exactly.
So there's some strange peace of mind that comes from that.
You get
isn't
some
it?
comfort from that, and that's always a free initial consultation. There's no obligations that follow from that.
Okay.
But the issue, Sterling, is there's a shortage of lawyers that are doing this work. There's more claims than there are lawyers to do them. And so when you're at a dinner party...
There's a shortage of lawyers? Oh, get serious.
Someone killed them all, right?
That was that Shakespeare guy.
Yeah.
He started a bizarre trend 400 years ago. Tell us seriously, though.
Yeah.
A shortage of lawyers representing small people against big insurance companies.
Yep, there absolutely is. When you say that at a dinner party, people laugh at you.
Of course. Well, I laughed at you now. I didn't believe you, frankly.
Shortage of doctors, shortage of teachers, nurses, but shortage of lawyers, ha. But it's true. And the reason is the attrition rate for young lawyers is quite high. It's very high. And there's many reasons for that. One of them being it's a tough profession. When you are starting out as a lawyer, for example, say you're starting out as a doctor, every professional you encounter is going to try to make you a better doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a young lawyer starting out, it can be pretty nasty because most of the lawyers, if you're doing litigation like we do, they're not out to help you. They're out to defeat you. And it takes a certain mental fortitude to survive. The other factor is when the economy is really hot in Canada, which it has been for years. I mean, it ebbs and flows, but when it's hot, big companies can afford to pay more and draw more lawyers away from regular people.
So, and we're not in any kind of economic boom now, but we certainly were a few years ago. And would that time have been, Kevin, the time when a lot of money floating in the marketplace, a lot of lawyers going, well, geez, I could bump up my bank account, just go to work for that firm down the street.
Well, yeah, and especially what you see is that there's probably not a shortage of lawyers in Calgary and in Edmonton and the major centers where the money's really flowing, but especially in BC, anytime you get outside the lower mainland, small town BC especially, there's a huge shortage of lawyers and regular people just aren't being served.
What percentage of Murphy Bautista's clientele is from outside Metro Vancouver?
About 35%.
And that's from all over British Columbia then?
All over Canada, all over the world, actually.
Okay, and it's all about, in some form or another, a denial of some kind of, it's about a battle with an insurance company, isn't it?
Right. You don't need to be near your lawyer. You need to be, if you're injured, you need to be near your doctor. And if you have an insurance claim, you don't need to live anywhere near your lawyer. You just need to make sure you've got a very good one representing you. So, yeah, we have about 35% of our clients outside the lower mainland.
Well, we're, of course, here on AM 650, our signal just booms into all of the east coast of Vancouver Island, from Campbell River right down to Victoria. There are a few 100,000 people, a lot of boomers in that population, and our signal reaches all up and down the island. And so would a lot of those people want to just pay attention to this because you're fairly close, relatively speaking, and maybe there might not be as many law firms over there, and they should maybe take a look at jumping on a ferry.
Well, I mean, pick up the phone, right? Pick up the phone and call. That's how we always get the basic information to start. I mean, there's a lot of good lawyers in these rural areas. They're very, very good lawyers. There's no doubt about that. But there's just a shortage of them.
But you're, and I hate to use this word because I know the law society gets a little edgy when I say specialists. You don't like to call yourself specialists, and I don't think the Law Society likes it either. But I can call you a specialist. I'm not a part of all of that. And that's the specialty of your work is opposing the insurance industry on behalf of individual clients. And that's very specialized work, isn't it?
Well, I think what it is, we've got unique skills. We've got tremendous experience handling these insurance claims. That's a better way of putting it. And I mean, I keep track of the number of lawyers or competitors we have, and I think there's about 6 or 8 in the province that that represent regular folks on these claims. And compared to the amount of lawyers that represent insurance companies, it's about 60 or 70. So,
by the way, you mentioned call. Give us a call. Why don't I just give out the web address? Because all of the information about Murphy Bautista, all the contact us stuff, it's all right there. And the address is simply murphybautista.com. Bautista has 2 T's. It's Murphy, Battista.com. Great website, too, gentlemen. It's a very user-friendly and very kind of inviting. It doesn't, it's not the sort of thing where when you go to the website, you're sort of intimidated. If anything, it's the opposite effect. It's, oh, well, this looks like a company I could get along with.
Well, then, it's meeting its purpose then.
All right, and if you want to make the call, all of that information, all the contact information out of town and local and all that is at murphybautista.com.
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about the kind of claims that you talk, the kind of individuals that you deal with. And I know that you can't be too specific, but are most claims small dollars, or are we talking like millions here in terms of the average amount of a claim? And I know it's tough to do, but is it? Give me a ballpark idea of the kind of clients that you deal with, Kevin.
It runs the entire range from people who have a minor issue where it might not be worthwhile to actually retain a lawyer, but it is worthwhile to get a little bit of advice in dealing with an insurance company, to people that have had multi-million-dollar claims denied or are entitled to significant amounts of disability benefits that aren't being paid. So it's really, you can't say that claims are one amount or another. It's the full range.
Scott, you mentioned earlier, and we're going to take a break here, but I wanted to just follow up on it. When we were talking about the insurance company hearing that Murphy Bautista is getting involved here, and we may have some reckoning to do. So this firm has a reputation in the insurance business that you are not to be trifled with. If Murphy Bautista is going to come as your advocate, then the people on the other side of the table, they know they're going to be in for a scrap.
Well, what they know, if they don't know, they should know, is that we won't stop and we won't quit until the claim has been dealt with. We're never going to quit on a client. That'll never happen. Never has happened. It'll never happen. If we have a claim that's worth pursuing and the client wants us to, it's going to trial.
All right, Scott Stanley and Kevin Gorley from Murphy Bautista with us on this edition of You and the Law. I'm Sterling Fox, and we'll be right back.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is You and the Law on AM 650.